Adolf Hitler and Lord Voldemort were born worlds apart. While one was history and the other was literary, both show similarities in their drive for power and their harsh, idealistic views on society. These two dictators have also undeniable similarities when it comes to their lives and personalities as well. They are both prime examples of the dangers and damage that could come from bigotry and the hunger for power. The details of the discrimination and injustice that goes on in the magical world and what went on in Nazi Germany are strikingly similar. In the magical world, there was the idea that purebloods, which were wizards or witches that had purely magic background, were the superior race, and that muggles, or muggleborns, which were wizards that had non-magic blood in their family history, were inferior. A derogatory term used for muggleborns was mudblood, which was used as a form of discrimination because it suggested that they had dirty blood, which gave them no right to be a wizard or witch. Purebloods that did not follow this idea were considered blood traitors. Some pureblood families would disown members who married non-purebloods and would often marry their cousins to maintain their pureblood status. Purebloods who deemed themselves superior to Muggles often believed that mudbloods were little more than animals, and that they were not worthy of studying magic at Hogwarts. This idea began with Salazar Slytherin, who was one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts, but left after the other founders decided against his idea. This idea of hatred and inequality is easily comparable to Nazi Germany and the discrimination and destruction of Jews. Jews had always been hated since long before the Holocaust. They were often seen as dirty and blamed for many problems that the other German people had. Many people were evaluated on their family history to decide whether they were fit to be a part of the superior race or not. Jews were often considered a mythical creature and were dehumanized. In Nazi Germany, Jews were not allowed to attend German schools as well. Growing up, Voldemort and Hitler shared similarities between their troubled childhoods, which led to be one of the reasons for their hatred of the inferior race. Voldemort's mother, Merope Gaunt, was a witch, and his father, Tom Riddle, was a muggle. When Merope was pregnant with her son, she came clean with her husband and confessed that she was a witch. After hearing this news, Tom left Merope and his son on their own. Tom's mother was empathetic and loving towards her son, but unfortunately, Merope died giving birth to Tom Marvolo Riddle, aka Voldemort, named after his Muggle father and Marvolo, his grandfather. Voldemort grew up in an orphanage in London till the age of 11. He often stole possessions of other kids and used his powers without realizing it to terrorize other children. Voldemort was extremely intelligent and used fear and manipulation to get what he wanted and to control others. Still, Voldemort knew his boundaries. When Dumbledore came to the orphanage to take Voldemort to Hogwarts, he knew that he could not scare Dumbledore the way he did with the other orphans, so he immediately was polite to gain Dumbledore's trust. Hitler's childhood also involved deaths, isolation, and unhappiness. Hitler's father came into the picture when he was 5. This was a very unfortunate and hard time for Hitler because it meant that he had to attend school for the first time, where he had difficulty making friends and doing schoolwork. So, his father was very cold and stern, so this meant more discipline and occasional beatings. His mother, on the other hand, spoiled Hitler very much. He was seriously shook by 2 major deaths consisting of his little brother at age 6 and his mother, who passed when he was 10. He then ran away to live with his uncle to avoid his father. At school, he often got made fun of and struggled with his schoolwork. He often daydreamed in class and wanted to be an artist instead. He did not fit in until he was held back a year and became the leader of troublemakers because he had the advantage of being older. Both Voldemort and Hitler, after having rocky starts, slowly worked their way down their road to ambition. Young Tom Riddle was taken from the orphanage and welcomed into Hogwarts as a Slytherin, which housed mostly pureblood students that exhibit such traits as cunning, resourceful, and ambition, and was also known to produce many dark witches and wizards. Tom had a deep interest in the beliefs of Salazar and his heritage, which led his curious self to run into some trouble after opening the Chamber of Secrets, which led to getting another student killed. Tom did excellent in all his academic subjects while at Hogwarts. After learning his Muggle father left his mother to death and misery, his hatred for Muggles grew and blossomed as he finished school. Adolf, on the other hand, pursued arts in Vienna after his father died. Unfortunately, the artwork he presented were rejected by his professor, who was a Jew, and he was kicked out of the school. This fueled his hatred for Jews, along with the fact that the doctor that was responsible for his mother's death was also a Jew. After being kicked out of school, Hitler became homeless and only had the money that he gained from manipulating his aunt to give him. Around this time, Hitler discovered his ability to capture people's attention with public speaking on the streets. This was the start of their road to gaining a large group of supporters. Voldemort was able to play off the fear that others had of him because he killed anyone who disagreed and could read their minds, so they were not able to even think about revolting against him. Hitler was able to play off the state of fear and anger that the German people were in because of the downfall of their economy. He was able to act as a beacon of hope that would bring them change. During these stages in their lives, they developed a hatred for another kind that would eventually cause the death and misery of many. Tom Riddle was not socially interactive back in Hogwarts, but in terms of achievement, he clearly caught the eye of his professors and headmaster, and he was given an award for special services to the school. At Hogwarts, he had a group of so-called friends, along with others who just sought protection or glory. Although Voldemort claimed these were his friends, he cared very little for them by making them do his dirty work. Adolf Hitler enlisted in the military during World War I in Germany. Similar to his days back in school, Hitler again struggled with making friends and rarely went out with his comrades due to his lack of his social skills. But what he lacked socially, he made up in field work, where he proved himself to be an asset for his bravery. Though he may have been unpopular with his comrades, his bravery was recognized by his officers. Hitler was awarded Germany's highest award for bravery, the Iron Cross. These achievements and persuasion are what aided them the most in their rise to power. Tom Riddle started to spread his influence at school. He gathered allies who also believed in the same ideology. He then persuaded Professor Slughorn to tell him about Horcruxes, which were objects that Voldemort would hide parts of his soul in to help him become even more invincible. Voldemort also had a very strong army that consisted of Death Eaters, who were pureblood supremacists, Dementors, which fed on happiness and could take people's soul from a kiss, and Inferi, which were dead bodies of people Voldemort had killed and bewitched to make an army. Hitler, on the other hand, worked within the education department of the army. His work was to conduct lectures for returning soldiers about the dangers of communism, socialism, and pacifism. He practiced using his speaking skills to gain more and more supporters, formed the Storm Division, which broke up communist gatherings, and became the leader of the Nazis. Voldemort and Hitler both used persuasion as their key to gain loyal supporters. After gaining masses of audiences and supporters, both tyrants started to spread reign and terror among others. Hitler oppressed the Jews, while Voldemort tormented Muggleborns. Another striking comparison is that Adolf Hitler is rumored to be part Jewish, yet he despises all Jewish people. He had brown hair with blue eyes when he claimed that blue eyes and blonde hair was a master race. Lord Voldemort was not a pureblood because of his father, but his goal was to purify the wizarding race against mudbloods and to deny their right to magic. They both promote ideologies that both of them are not necessarily a part of. Once Voldemort took over the Ministry of Magic, he created the Muggleborn Registration Commission. The commission's purpose was to register, interrogate, dewand, imprison, and possibly kill Muggleborns. They believed that instead of inheriting magic, the Muggleborns had somehow obtained magic by thievery. All Muggleborns had to be registered and were evaluated on their family history. This is very similar to how the Nazis determined who were Jewish. They would look back at records, use questioning of relatives, and use information provided by neighbors. This led to few other similarities, the first being that the Ministry of Magic avoided using mudbloods in the title of the committee to help sound non-biased. Nazis used a similar tactic when it came to concentration camps and ghettos. They instead called them relocation centers. This tactic was to help lure their victims by sounding less intimidating. Another similarity was that the head of the committee, Dolores Umbridge, created pamphlets that was titled Mudbloods and the danger they pose to a peaceful pureblood society. Similarly, Jews were often seen as threats to women and children and were portrayed as evil. Lastly, when Nazis first started killing, they only targeted Jewish men, but eventually they were to kill all Jews, no matter what age or gender. In comparison, Death Eaters did not care about any Muggleborn's magical powers or accomplishments. It all came down to their blood status. Nazis and Death Eaters were Hitler's and Voldemort's right-hand men. Both groups strike fear to their enemies and were used to kill their victims. Another group Voldemort used to his advantage were Snatchers, which he formed when he took control of the Ministry of Magic. Snatchers were a group that would catch Muggleborns for Voldemort to get a reward in return. Voldemort's Snatchers were similar to Hitler's Gestapo, which were secret police who round up the Jews. They both act in secrecy, spreading fear that they would strike at random. They even kidnapped, murdered, and terrorized those who spoke out against them. In order to acquire additional power and finance, Hitler tried to get support of families with strong German heritage, while Lord Voldemort's supporters were those of the oldest wizarding families, like the Malfoys. Voldemort had his own signature, the Dark Mark, while Hitler used the swastika. Both Hitler and Tom Riddle changed their names to give themselves more power. Tom Riddle did not want to be known as his father's son, so he changed his name to Lord Voldemort to get rid of his Muggle name. And Adolf Hitler claimed his own title, which was the German name that meant the leader. Although they had different ways of capturing and killing their victims, they both shared their hatred for the inferior race and had extreme idealistic views on their society. The comparison between the prejudices against the Jews and the Muggles, the life and personality of Voldemort and Hitler, as well as between the political regimes in both dictators, show just how similar Voldemort and Hitler are, and how the drive for power and perfection caused so much damage.